I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Hey guys, so today we have the new class, the Tempest, just released into the game, and my initial impressions of this class are it's actually pretty fun to play, and with the right build it's actually very smooth. In this video I'm just going to be covering the open world farm build which I've been using for the Tempest, just to farm up all the essence. So at the moment I'm just sitting at Mastery 3, and I farmed up pretty much all of the essence here. I think I'm missing something like 2 or 3 essence. So my goal with the Tempest farm build is just to create a build that has really good mobility and decent damage while maintaining that mobility. So let's quickly talk about the skills first that I'm using. For the primary attack, I'm using the Wind Edge. For the first skill, I'm using the Rolling Surf. This is one of the best skills to use for mobility on this class. So it gives you a 35% increased movement speed, and it also empowers your primary attacks to become Swirling Whip Strikes, dealing 25,000 damage, and also allows you to use all of your skills as well as the ultimate ability whilst moving. So this is just a no-brainer to have in this build, and I'll be talking about the essence that I'm using to further enhance the skill. For the second skill, we're using Crosswinds. So this says that you and your Zephyrs unleash a gust of wind at the targeted location, dealing 26,000 damage. But because of the essences that we have, it basically empowers your primary attacks, and they end up doing an incredible amount of damage. And also they have this huge AoE effect, which means that they'll be hitting a lot of the mobs on the screen as you're moving, which is really, really good. So these two skills, I wouldn't recommend switching them out. And I would recommend any open world build just to use these two skills. For the next two skills, you can actually switch them out, but I've kind of gone towards the mobility route, and I feel like this works the best for me. So for the third skill here, we're using Breaker, which is a dash skill. This basically allows you to get 2 charges. From the essence, we also get a flat damage increase from our total essence, which is really good. And for the second skill, we're using the Squall dash skill, and we're not using any essence for this one. We just have 2 extra charges of dash, which is really good. So in total, we have 4 dashes here. And then these 2 are the damage skills. Having the extra 2 dashes actually makes the build a lot smoother to play. Even if you do sacrifice a little bit of damage, I feel like I'm still one-shotting all of the yellow mobs and also the orange mobs. So this setup really works very well for me. So now let's move on to talk about the essence, which I'm using. So for the legendary essence, I'm using the Unyielding Vision for the helmet. And I believe that this essence actually comes with the class change, so it's very good that a lot of these essence you'll be able to use straight out the box without farming for them. So this one empowers your critical hits from Rolling Surf and causes them to deal an explosion of water, which is a nice AoE effect, dealing 10,000 damage and also increases the damage. So this is a very good essence to use as the helmet essence. So for the chest essence, I'm using the Merchant Scale, which is another Rolling Surf essence. So this one allows you to conjure a Zephyr whenever you press your Rolling Surf, and it also gives you Rolling Surf cooldown. But the main reason I'm using this essence is because it's the only essence in the game which actually gives you Rolling Surf cooldown reduction when you awaken the slot, which is extremely good because this basically allows you to have a permanent Rolling Surf, which I believe that this is the only way currently in the game to have the permanent Rolling Surf without having to dismount from this skill, and it just makes your build a lot clunkier if you switch this out for something else. If you don't have the Awakening, you could use the Vortex Essence and switch out Squall for Vortex, and that also performs pretty good, but bear in mind that your build will be a little bit clunkier, but it will do a bit more damage, so that's also good. So for the last essence for the Rolling Surf, we're also using the Flooded Stream, which is another essence that you get from the class switch. So this says that Rolling Surf empowers your edges, which are your primary attacks, causing your Zephyr's primary attacks to become Swirling Whip Strikes as you move, and Rolling Surf damage is also increased. So Rolling Surf is actually the highest damage dealer in the build in terms of the skills, so that's why I have these 3 essences here, and it's really nice that these 2 come straight out of the box and ready to go, so you won't have to be farming for them very much. So for the shoulder and pants essence slots, these both empower the Breaker skill. So the shoulders basically gives you increased damage. I think this goes up to 19% on Mastery 4. It basically gives you increased damage for 4 seconds, and this duration will be increased by your beneficial effect. So it's just really good to get this flat damage increase, and it also will increase all the damage done by your Zephyrs, which is really good. As for the pants essence, you have this Wave Rider here, which reads that Breaker now causes you to dash forward knocking back enemies in your path. So this is what transforms the Breaker skill into an extra dash, and you'll have 2 dashes of it. And it's really good to also awaken this slot because it will give you the Breaker cooldown. So if you haven't farmed this essence, I wouldn't worry too much. There's also another Pants essence which allows you to use Breaker as a dash, which is the Flaring Lighthouse. So that one does a bit less damage and gives you a shield, but it's still a very good option just to have the extra dashes. So I would use that if you haven't farmed the Wave Rider essence. So now let's talk about the weapons essence which we're using. So the first one here is the Shriekworth. So this basically empowers your crosswinds, and it makes your critical hits cause 4 blades of winds to shatter off the target, dealing 11,000 damage. This basically turns your crosswinds into a really good AoE effect, and you'll see it splitting into these 4 blades when it hits a target and just doing a very good amount of damage. I wouldn't recommend switching this essence out. It's just extremely good. For the second essence here, this is also another one for crosswinds. It's the Hurricane Hitch. So what this one does is that it empowers your edges with wind, causing you and your Zephyr's primary attack to unleash wind blades, damaging enemies. This is also a very good one, and you'll find that it makes your crosswinds do that extra bit of damage, which is really good and nice to be able to kill and one-shot those elite mobs. So I wouldn't recommend switching these 2 essences out. As for the last essence, the offhand essence here, which I struggle to pronounce the name for, this one, it empowers your Zephyr damage by 24%. To be honest, I'm just using this one because this essence also comes right out of the box when you class switch, and you won't have to farm for it, which is really nice. But I do want to test out some of these offhand essence, which might be slightly better options, such as this one here for the Wind Edge, and also we have this one here for Crosswinds, which I'm not sure if it works with the other main hand essences. But for now, this is a very good option. As you can see, I haven't found this essence yet. I'm just using it straight from the class switch. So it's a very good option. Having this extra Zephyr damage is always good, because we're always summoning Zephyrs from our passive skill, as well as from our Rolling Surf. So now let's move on to talk about the set pieces, which also links to the secondary stats, which are very important in this build. So for the set pieces, I would recommend running 4-piece Vithu. This is really good to have the increased 30% beneficial duration, which will allow you to have 100% uptime of both Crosswinds and Rolling Surf, which is really good. As well as this, they're obviously buff skills, so they'll give you this 30% increased attack speed. So this is really good to have. For the other 4 slots, I would recommend going for either 4-piece of Shalbas, like I've gone for here. Other good options would include 4-piece Gloom Guide. Obviously, since we're running 4 dashes, it would be really, really good. 4-piece Banquet would also perform very well. 4-piece Angment would also be pretty decent. You pretty much have a lot of good options. Isatar would also be fine here. The main thing actually that you want to look for is to have the magic attributes to have movement speed as well as cooldown. So if you look at my stats here, I have cooldown reduction is 14% and my movement speed is at 20% without pressing any of the skills. You actually want to get this to as close as possible to 20%, which is the maximum you can have without pressing your skills. So I have the 10% from Bloodsoaked Jade here. This is a very important gem to have on the setup. Other than that, I have the extra 10% from my set pieces here. I have 4% here, 3% here, and another 3% here. You could also get it on this ring, but I've missed out the roll here, but this is what I've gone for. So it's actually more important to get the cooldown as close to 15% just to have very good uptime on all of your skills, and you want to get this movement speed up to 20% because when you press your Rolling Surf here, you'll notice that this will buff your movement speed by 35%, which will give you 55% increased movement speed, and the cap is 70% here, but with all the dashes you'll still feel extremely fast even though you're not exactly at the cap of the movement speed. So that's it as far as the set options go. So now let's talk about the legendary gems that I'm using. So here I'm using Void Spark Auxiliary, a very good gem for open world. I'm using Mother's Lament, I'm using Pain Clasp, I'm using a Bloodsoaked Jade, which I would definitely recommend to have in this setup to get the 10% increased movement speed. Otherwise, it's going to be very challenging for you to reach the 20% increased movement speed, which I really recommend having on this build. So Bloodsoaked Jade isn't really a gem that I would recommend to pass out on if you do manage to get a copy. Next, we have the Svensson's Haunting, which I've used Roiling Consequence as the auxiliary. A very good gem, giving you the increased crit chance here. Next, we are using the Gloom Cask, also a gem I wouldn't recommend skipping in this setup. Next, we're using the Fervent Fang. You can honestly switch this gem out for something else. I just have it because I've ranked it up to rank 9 and I'm very close to getting it awakened. So I'm pretty happy having this gem in my setup, but if you have something like a Viper's Bite, would work very well. Everlasting Torment would also work very well. Just anything that provides damage, Berserker's Eye, let's say, if you have it, also would work pretty decently. And then for the last gem, I'm using the Bottled Hope. So since we're using the 2-buff setup with the Rolling Surf and the Crosswinds, this is an extremely good gem. Will give you the increased damage as well as the cooldown, which is very nice to have. So before we move on to show the gameplay for this build, I'm going to talk about the Paragon. So I'm actually going to have a more in-depth Paragon video coming. Probably after this one goes live, I'll have that one going live. But just to show you guys, I'm using the Vanquisher tree here. And basically, I'm using this side of it, which is the old Treasure Hunter. And this works very well in open world. It's kind of the tried and trusted one, so I kind of like having this one. Another very good option would be to go for the Brawler tree and go for the Warden size increase, the 5% here, as well as the increase, which makes it go up to 8% here from the combat expertise. This will give you the increased size, which also gives you increased movement speed. Unfortunately, none of these other nodes are very good for open world farming, so this is why I've kind of stuck with the good old Treasure Hunter tree here. So now I'll be showing you guys some of the gameplay. So the rotation of the skills in this build is very simple. If you have enough beneficial effect duration and cooldown reduction, you're going to have 100% uptime of your Rolling Surf as well as your Crosswinds. So other than that, you have your Squall and your Breaker dash skills, which you just kind of want to alternate between and fill in the gaps where you just need the extra bursts of movement speed just to keep your kill streaks going and maintaining a very good mobility. So as you can see here, I have no problem clearing most of this solo. I told my group to kind of press follow on me just so I could show how this build performs in a group. And yeah, you can just see that it's melting mobs extremely fast. It has no problems, and I actually missed out on pressing my ulti here. I think that the ulti on the new Tempest class actually looks extremely cool. So I would have loved to have pressed it here, but I was just extremely tired after farming for a while and trying to min-max the build, and I completely forgot that I had the ultimate up here. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think of the new Tempest class so far and what kind of builds you guys have been playing, as well as the new patch as a whole, kind of what your opinions are. Personally, I've been having a great deal of fun just playing today and also grinding up the essence, and I will have more guides for the Tempest, like the dungeon build as well as the PvP build, which I'll have shortly up on my channel. But yeah, do give me some time. I do want to reach Mastery 4 just before I play around with PvP a bit. If you don't want to miss out on those videos, then do consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the like button. It really does help my channel a lot and helps the YouTube algorithm recommend my videos to other people. So with that said, I want to thank you all once again so much for watching. Do give this build a go and let me know what you guys think. If you do have any improvements, then also do let me know in the comments. But for now, I'll be signing off, and I'll be seeing you guys in a video later today where I'll be covering the Paragon tree changes. Hope you all have a great day, and remember, be water, my friend.